Good morning, Middle Earth. Hello, Flickin' Fanatics. The finale is here, and we're going to talk about it right after this. Hello and good morning. We are back. Sorry we missed you last week. It is Jesse Swift and Scott Fox here to talk about the finale of Rings of Power, and very excited to do so. We are on a tight schedule today, so we will be rushing through a little bit. That's also the reason for the earlier start time today. But hey, if you can't watch until the rewatch, that's okay. We just appreciate you being here. And I think one of the most heartbreaking things is out of our group watching Rings of Power here on Flick and Reel, Scott was the last one to watch it, and we were all eagerly waiting on bated breath. It's gotten to the point where now my wife is always like, after we watch something, she keeps going, has Scott watched it yet? Has Scott watched it yet? Because that is our high valued opinion on the matter.
It was such a good finale. Like, there's so many things you could say about it, and they covered... I was surprised they did not touch on every storyline, but I think there's some of them they attempted to wrap up in episode 7.
And we'll touch on that because I do have some thoughts on that element.
But overall, just the initial reaction was well done. Like they brought the season to a close. They left enough questions open, and they left it wide open for another season. They did a good job of wrapping up all the little bits, or not necessarily wrapping up, but bringing together all the little bits that hadn't been completed. And it was beautifully done too. I actually cried during the episode. Being a father,
man,
there's
yeah.
Being a father, those conversations between a father and daughter, a father and son, those relationships are just so challenging because they hit home. They really, really hit home, and it was good. And so the action, while it wasn't a massive amount of action, the little bit that we got was really intense.
I think it's very appropriate for Middle Earth. You get action peppered in, but like there's so much more to fantasy than swords and magic and clashing, but we did get some magic, and it was chain.
Oh yeah, and I loved the false lead at the beginning with the Mystics. As soon as that happened, you'll watch the stream. I'm like, huh, that's a lie. Like, that's clearly a false lead. And the second that Halbrand got to Aragian, it was like, well, check. I know who this is. That was the final straw. I mean, and I'll admit, I went multiple times and said that I believed Adar was going to be Sauron, and then I flip-flopped a little bit and said I'm not sure. But then I went back to 2 months ago. You can check our shorts.
Before the show started.
Oh, that's what that was weird. Yeah, check our shorts. You can view our shorts on our YouTube channel.
And you know that we're excited about the show.
Yes. But there's a short where I say that that's the best theory, that Halbrand would have ended up being it. And it was... the reveal there was so intense and well done. But... prior to that, with the stranger, who, by the way, we know we can just say Gandalf now.
Yeah,
he literally quoted Gandalf
like 3 times.
Yeah, 3 or 4 times using Gandalf quotes. Gandalf is the only one who cares about the lore of the hobbits and the little people from the Shire. And being that when he first came, he knew that. But boy, what a protector too. Gandalf even says he is a steward of Middle Earth. But when the Mystics came out and said, like, hailed him as Lord Sauron returned,
and then kept trying to show him who he was, and yeah, when that beginning started, Lauren and I both looked at each other like, I don't think so. And then the first look we got of Halbrand, well rested. The second he starts talking to Celebrimbor. And it is the most excited he's been about anything ever in this entire show. And I was like, oh, right there.
Well, the other thing is, in the Tolkien lore, Sauron is the one who taught the elves how to forge the rings and how to also blend magic into the rings. The thing that they kind of have lessened on this show is that the elves did have some magic powers. They not necessarily magic powers, but they were, if they revealed themselves fully, their presence is quite powerful. And part of the rings of power that Sauron made and everything was infusing the power of the Maiar in order within the rings. And they didn't really touch on that other than that they were using the mithril with the other metals to blend it. But it is correct with Tolkien lore that Sauron helped them teach that. Now, we'll touch on what I think happens in season 2 later. But when he was in there, you're right. He was suddenly, and he also recovered real quick.
Pretty quick.
Real quick.
Looking
almost
the other day.
Almost. Yeah, that wound had been that wound would have killed a regular man the day it happened. And it soured overnight. And then he had to ride 6 days.
Yeah, 6 days, that's what it was, yeah.
A week with an injury like that, bleeding
without
out.
rest.
Without rest. He would have been dead.
Yeah.
But Sauron just decides, well, I'm going to wait till I get where I need to go. And then, I'm feeling pretty good this morning. You know what? That cold that I had when I rode in here, I'm okay.
Yeah.
It was, you were right. He was giddy about
the magic vaccine kicked in.
Did anything specifically make you think? There's a lot of quotes that Halbrand has earlier in the series where he's describing how to control people and how to overcome people, where it's very deceptive types of things. He specifically talking to Galadriel. He has several spots where he talks about it.
Retrospectively, there's a lot of little things that make sense with Halbrand. One of them being,
I still believe the little baggie has the other rings.
Maybe.
Still believe it.
We didn't get the reveal there. But another thing, people are like, well, I thought he shapeshift. I think we already have evidence of him shapeshifting because he asks Adar, do you remember me? And Adar's like, nope. And so either Adar's lying or Halbrand used to look different.
He totally looked different because Sauron also used to hide himself to look more like an elf. And we know he's a shapeshifter because in the battle against Finrod, or sorry, against Finrod, he disguises himself, and then he fights the Hound of Valinor as a werewolf. After he loses that, he turns himself into a vampire and flies away. But Sauron is a shapeshifter, usually looking like an elf, but this time he allowed himself to look more like a man in order to get where he wanted to go and get. I'm assuming looking like a Valinorian or looking like a Numenorian.
And I don't remember the actor's last name, but Charlie, the guy that plays Halbrand, was being interviewed recently, and he says that I believe he's under the understanding that they're going to get to and do some Anatar stuff in season 2.
Yep.
So,
and that's the whole thing is he doesn't just shapeshift, and I'm sure they'll just use prosthetics to keep same actor continuity for the role.
Maybe.
But he can change his appearance, and he also can make himself look very weak and feeble. He can make himself look strong and powerful. It almost seemed as though he grew in stature as well throughout the show. Because if you see him when he's in the Southlands and he's all suited up, he almost appears taller and more lordly. And so they really played with some of that stuff. But there's just, I think the biggest thing that really was a tip-off to him being Sauron is if you really look at all his quotes, and now knowing you're going to go back and watch the series and be like, oh, how did I not see all this? The red flags are everywhere.
At least 2 years to wait. That's plenty of time to watch the show again.
That sucks.
Charlie Vickers. Thank you, Reefism. Appreciate it. So let's really quickly, before moving on, we'll address the elephant in the room. So obviously we were missing out on Arondir and it's during the 4th, right?
Yep, and Bronwyn. Yeah, the Southlanders and what happened to them, Arondir. But that they kind of got a finale in episode 7. And Durin getting banished, I thought we would have touched that. But I think now that the rings have been completed, they're going to be able to come back and maybe restore that relationship.
Point for Durin. So I think we got the finale for this season of his story already. And that happens with Game of Thrones sometimes. Sometimes you get a character's finale in episode 9, but then we have to go back to the other characters in episode.
Yeah, there's a lot of storylines, and that episode, I was actually expecting a longer episode, but they stuck to the timeline. It was with
like
credits, an hour and 10 minutes.
That's still, that's pretty good.
But then you think, if you take out the recap in the beginning and the credits at the end, you got roughly 1 hour. That's it. Maybe an hour and 2 minutes.
If only you knew how crusty, Mike K. It's rough. We got a diet of, not sponsored yet. Hopefully I don't blur this out, but Monster Rain just finished Reese's Take 5 bars, the diet of champions right now.
Coffee with a pig on it.
Coffee.
But the those stories, there's so many storylines. You have an hour, and there's still a lot of story to tell. And they had they covered a lot of ground very quickly. And, it's settled around the Stranger and the Harfoots, which beautifully done. And then and the Mystics mixed with, which, by the way, they're gone.
Yeah. Well, not a line, but another thing that made me go, Gandalf, was the fact he turned them into moths.
Yes. Turned them into animals, which there's just so many little things. I love that they revealed them almost like the Witch King. They were the spirit, the evil spirit,
I saw that
which is what wraiths is what they would be called. When they were revealed by him, they turned. You could see their wraith form, and he disbanded them completely. Now, we don't know where they came from or what specifically that was, but still really well done. We got to see Nori again, trying to help him understand, you shall not pass.
Well, I was thinking that because I don't remember exactly the line. He essentially said, like, back to the shadows, and I was like, bro, if this ain't Gandalf, I'm lost with somebody.
The only thing I wanted more out of that was there was a tree with some gnarled branches with some cool shape, and I was praying he would pick up a branch from that as a walking stick to be his staff.
I thought when he took the staff from the Mystics, I was like, that's going to get reshaped. And I think I thought
that too. I did like that they destroyed it because I was thinking he's so much closer to nature. I mean, Radagast is really the one tied to nature, but he, the other thing about Gandalf is he's much more humble. And so the idea of him just grabbing a tree branch and having that become his staff would have been amazing.
You take an old man from his walking stick.
Exactly. But I was hoping for that, but when they didn't do it, it's okay. But I also love that he let her lead the way, and she's like, I don't know which way to go. And then the line of, oh, this way, when you're unsure, trust your nose. Yes.
It's a great
full on Toucan Sam. But it was beautifully done. And the departure of Nori from her father when they're sending her on the way. Oh,
is it Poppy? Right?
Poppy is her best friend.
Right, yeah. So when she screams like Nori and ran back after her, and Lauren's sitting next to me crying, she's like, "That's your Sam."
It 100% is. It's the same, not the same relationship, but similar. And the idea of and I love that they talked about adventures being lived, journeys and adventures. Like, come on. Like, literally, they're pulling right out of the Hobbit.
Shared, right?
Yes. And the fact that I got more emotional I was already crying with the father. The Poppy thing I was predicting. I knew that was coming. You knew she wasn't going to just leave her hanging. You knew she was coming back. But when she's having the conversation with her father and saying and quoting all the wisdom that he says, I haven't taught you anything, and she quotes all the things that he's taught her, and then says, I was listening the entire time.
It got me too. I'm not even a dad, and I was just like, man, my cats don't listen to me, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, cats don't care what anybody thinks about anything, other than, hey, put food in this bowl, jerk.
Yeah.
On
the jerk.
But it was overall, I thought that those emotional beats were perfect. Then, so we see Gandalf battling in the Wizards duel when she flips him sideways and slams him against the rocks. It all is like this is the battle with Sauron. It's exactly what it is, and it was well done. I enjoyed it, but then I love that the Harfoots were jumping and throwing
We
rocks.
lost Sadok.
Yeah,
I'm so sad.
that almost got me. I was this close. Like I was emotional. Like, oh, I'm so disappointed in that. And I love that he just sat there to watch the sun come up. And that I love this line that I'm going to have to wander off trail right here. Just beautifully done. And what the only disappointing part about that is I really would have loved more of him next season.
Yeah.
But we see also Nori helping remind Gandalf that you're not evil. You're not a bad person. You're here to help. I also love that the Istar means the wise one, also wizard. All these little touches were just beautifully done, really good for the story. And so we have this beautiful parallel here, and then it's all over to Eregion, where Galadriel and Halbrand have this
Professor X mind battle.
Holy mackerel! She's trying to fight what he. There you go. Your cat's right over your shoulder. He snuck in. But yes, when she figures it out, and he realizes she figured it out, he doesn't even try to hide it. When she goes to one, she used a really bad stab tactic to try and knife him. But when he catches her hand, and you're like, uh-oh. Like, there's immediate, this guy is not to be messed with. Like, the way the score was written and the sound effects, when he grabs her hand, it's almost so intense and powerful when he snatches her arm. And you're like, oh, crap.
Quick pause. Howard Shore set the bar for, fantasy scores, right? Bear McCreary is crushing it in the show.
This show is so well done. Like, they I'm not going to say I've every emotional tick has landed for me, but the building of intensity has been spot on. And that battle when he grabs her arm and then teases her by pretending to be Finrod and and I love that he misquotes everything that happened.
Sauron.
Oh, he misquotes everything to try and confuse what she's thinking. She's like, no, I didn't say that. Yeah. No, you said this. No. And he keeps he manipulates everything. So the big thing with Morgoth is everything that was great that was created.
Sauron's superpowers, gaslighting.
Basically, but that's what Morgoth did. Morgoth took everything that was created and by the Valar, and he turned it he tried to manipulate it and turn it for evil. Everything. And Sauron follows in his footsteps and continues to manipulate and transform and mess things up. And it's this beautiful kind of dynamic where he does gaslight. He tries to convince you that what happened was not really what happened. And she's having to struggle with this because she's looking at her brother who's been dead for quite some time. I'll jump ahead. But this intense battle where they're sitting in Valinor having this conversation, and she's trying to fight against that, and then they're on the ship. They're back on the raft trying to fight it. And then boom, back into the water, dunked down for forever. And then thank goodness Elrond shows up to yank her back out. But she doesn't want to
out of there.
Oh, but I love the camera flip when it goes upside down. You see the reflection, and it's Sauron with the crown.
Yeah. And I really love the relationship between Elrond and Galadriel. And I love that when Elrond comes across that scroll, plus, yeah, when she was just saying, the lineage stopped, hundreds of years ago. Who are you? But when Elrond finds it, he runs up to, where Galadriel and Celebrimbor and he knows what's up, immediately. They, share an exchange of eye contact. It's oh. Well, now we have to do something.
Yes, I love that there's a trust between Galadriel and Elrond, and they're like, we can't, this is not something we share with everybody. But I love that she also came in and was like, no, it needs to be 3. And immediately sensing the wisdom of it, that we need to not have that.
3
that power needs to be evenly distributed in a way that doesn't give.
What is it? 1 would corrupt, 2 will divide. 3 is balanced.
3 is balanced. Correct. Well stated. It was really well done.
Man, I cannot believe the people that ridicule this show. The dialogue and script is almost 100% in this show. I think it is beautiful, and there's so often someone just says a line, and I look at Lauren and I go, wonderful.
I agree, Mike. Elrond is becoming one of the best characters in the show. Robert Arameo is just nailing this, and I love that even against Gil Galad, he quotes back his own wisdom. Yeah. Right, like Elrond is known as the wisest lore master in Middle Earth, and by the end of the Third Age, at the end of Lord of the Rings, and even here you see it because he remembers everything. And when the quote about hope. And he's like, hope is never
meager.
There's more to that line, but yeah, hope is never meager, never merely meager or something like that. But it's beautifully said in order to convince Gil Galad that it's not worth throwing away. There's still something there that they can work towards. I'm also curious about, now that they know how to work the mithril and save things, now we're going to see, because so the mithril they use, and they can also absorb moonlight, which is how they make the wire out of it. And you can see they use that wire to twist and to make the rings out of individual strands. And that hope is never mere, even when it is meager. Nailed it. And but that's what they use to absorb the moonlight when he makes the doorway to Moria. So that's clearly a season 2 type of thing, when they can get their hand on a little bit more of the mithril. So,
I've loved the story and the pacing, and some people say it's a really slow burn. I'm glad we got to the finale or whatever. I was like, listen, I loved this. I loved all of that, but we are now at a place where and here we go.
I'm not sure. See, my frustration with that is it's 8 hours. It's an 8 episode season. Slow burn. Did you want a Old West gunslinger shootout every episode nonstop the whole time? Sure, we could have had that, but Tolkien, a slow burn. The first 3 books of Lord of the Rings are long and long and long and then longer. And it takes forever to get anything done because they talk a lot about everything.
The conversation we keep having, because, man, we are a big Lord of the Rings household here, and we've been defending this show with every ounce of breath. But people act like Two Towers is just Helm's Deep. That's the movie. I was like, I can assure you after watching the extended edition, Helm's Deep is not the film.
Yeah, you're missing a huge portion of that. You also have... and with the books, Helm's Deep is literally half a chapter. It's quick. And in the book, there's so much more dialogue and growth and relationship and Frodo and Sam. And some of that got reshuffled to the other movies. But the whole thing with Shelob's Lair, that's in Two Towers, not in the Return of the King. But I digress. It's one of those things where Helm's Deep wouldn't work without a build-up. Yeah, they had to make that the culmination, because in the book it's literally a middle thing, and it happens pretty fast and it's over.
The reveal of the 2 characters that we got in the finale could very easily have felt forced or unearned if we didn't spend the time with them.
Totally.
And now I'm very invested in Gandalf and in Sauron, and I'm loving getting more of this origin telling with Galadriel and Elrond, and it's all been really good. I did miss my boy Arondir, though. And guess what? You know what? He survived the season, Scott.
Not if I wrote it. No, that's good. That's good. I'm glad that he made it through the season. We'll kill him off later. Anyways, You're
the worst.
The story, you're right. You have to have a long build-up, and you have to develop these characters. Also, Galadriel has to go through a massive amount of shape-shifting, right? She is... Her arc to where she ends up in Lord of the Rings versus where she started here is going to take a lot of growth and development and maturity. And though she's thousands of years old, she's been hell-bent on finding him, and now knowing that she's been deceived and helped essentially bring him back to power. this is going to be challenging for her.
Like in Fellowship of the Ring, we got a glance on what Galadriel could have been with Sauron's words to her, which are almost verbatim what she says to Frodo in Fellowship of the Ring.
100%.
Like a queen that become more powerful than whatever that line is. But it gave me chills, goosebumps all across this episode, and all the way to the end credits scene, or the not end credits scenes, like the end credits song. Somebody's probably like, "What did I miss?" It was a little on the nose, but I also loved it.
Well, and this is almost another parallel. The way that Sauron talks is a lot like Palpatine, where he twists things to make it seem like, no, the Jedi are really the ones who want to control and be in charge and destroy things, and that he's trying to set the world free and just establish order.
Yeah.
And
she was almost listening to him until she says, was it to lead or to rule? Or I don't know.
To rule or to set free or to rule.
Yeah.
And he says, I see no difference. And it's like, there's a difference.
Yeah.
There's a distinct difference. But he's, again, a master manipulator. He twists things. He gaslights, makes you feel like what you're saying, that what you remember didn't actually happen, or that it happened a different way that fits his narrative. So well done. And I'm really looking forward to next season, where I hope he sneaks his way back into Numenor. Ooh.
As I think, oh gosh, so I said the Anadar. Is that right?
Anatar? Yes, Anatar.
Yeah. And before we're getting close to wrapping up here, we talked about not getting Durin. I understood, because I think we left off on a good point. Arondir, what they could have done in a scene that I would have liked is, and we haven't talked about Elendil and is it Muriel, the queen? But
Tar Miriel.
That was a brief segment. Anyways, they go back and the king's dead. But moving on from that, I would have liked to see Arondir.
Oh, hold on a second. They did talk about the faithful in that, and that is critical, because the faithful are the ones who stick to the old ways and still worship the Valar and still seek the ties with the elves. Pharazôn wants nothing to do with them, and so when they get back, they know that the faithful are going to be persecuted badly. And Muriel knows that since her father's dead, she's in trouble. The throne is at risk. Sorry.
It wasn't going to be a finale episode if we didn't have that in there. I think they should have gone back to the Southlands for not like a whole segment, but like a scene of Arondir finding.
What land? Do you mean Mordor?
Mordor. But have Arondir find Isildur, and so we can just be like, okay, that's where Isildur is.
I wanted that as well. I really did, because Isildur clearly can't be dead.
No.
Anybody who's seen anything
just
about
like
Lord of the Rings knows that.
Huband is not dead. He's somewhere.
Celeborn is somewhere. It's just a matter of where. But so when they now that's a prediction for next season.
Well,
do we want to get into that?
You got your schedule. I know you gotta head out of here.
I've still got a few more minutes, but like right. I guess the question is like
being blessed with the Fox predictions.
So for next season, a couple storylines. Pharazôn is going to take power from Muriel. It has to happen. In order to stick with Tolkien lore, which is clearly established in that, Pharazôn is known as Last King of Numenor. And if he takes power, what he then does is he seeks to go control Middle-earth and control everything, really. But he actually captures Sauron, and Sauron goes willingly because he wants to go. And again, probably gaslights Pharazôn.
At that point, Sauron would not be disguised, because that's why
Correct.
He got captured. Okay, got it.
And he gets taken there, and then because of his cunning and because of his silver tongue, he talks himself into a leadership position and essentially convinces the Numenorians to start worshiping false gods. instead of the Valar. He starts worshiping false gods, and then he convinces Pharazôn to sail to the Undying Lands, to Valinor, and claim it for his own so he can be immortal. We already saw that tease there. They're talking about immortality with Pharazôn. Pharazôn's obsessed with being rich, being powerful, and being immortal. And Sauron convinces him to sail to the Undying Lands, which is what causes Eru to swallow Numenor whole. That's what happens. And so the question is, are they going to do that season 2, season 3, season 4? Where are they going to establish that in there? But it's part of the story that comes about. But I also think
this is our mission statement for everybody that's watching this show and watches our show and enjoys the positivity. If you have to force people, whatever you got to do, get more people to watch this, because this show is expensive and it looks expensive and it takes a lot of work. I know they're already like committed to doing season 2, but I have concerns just with like how much negative discourse there is, and the fact that in my immediate circles in real life, nobody's talking about the show.
It's
like, at work.
My dad had surgery last week and I was in the hospital and I mentioned it. And both the doctor and the nurse are like, "Oh yeah, I really enjoy this show." And I'm like, "Oh, where are you guys at?" And they're like, "Oh, one of them was on 2nd episode, one of them was on the 4th episode." And I'm like, "They finished 7. Like, what are you waiting for?" Oh. And then I wanted to talk about it, and they're like, "Don't say anything. I don't want any spoilers." I'm like, "Well, great thing is the finale is Friday, and then you can binge watch the rest of it. Like, hurry up, finish the show. It's so good." But the positive, they both loved it.
Yeah.
The nurse as well as the doctor who were in there helping my dad both loved the show, which was great. Always fun when you get to talk Tolkien when you're in the hospital. But it's not got enough positive publicity yet, even though it was certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, because the critic score is, I believe, an 89 or an 86 or something like that.
That's what matters, because like with movies, they have to be verified, where you have to show your ticket in order to review the movie. TV shows, there's no way to manage that. So anybody can go in and bomb a TV show.
Well, and to be honest, a lot of the commentary I've heard is just completely misplaced. And they have altered some stuff in the storyline. They condensed the storyline, but they did that with permission in order to get it to where they needed it. The frustrating part for me is you're not even giving it a chance. Like the quality, like forget about all the extra stuff. Just look at the quality that's on the screen. And also the people who are
ridiculous.
85 to 30. Yeah. The fan score is trash.
And I can go over really quick. I think She-Hulk's experiencing something similar, but as you were.
Yeah. They're not giving it a chance. The show is really well done. The direction, the score, the writing. Suddenly, episode 6, people just suddenly jumped on. We're like, "Ooh, this show suddenly got really good." And it's like, really? Just suddenly? I just don't like that we have to wait 2 years before season 2. I agree, 100%. That's too far for a show like this. You need to build on the momentum.
Oh yeah, and I don't know if you saw it. She-Hulk was 87% critics, 35% audience, and I'm just like, I hate fandom right now, like across the board. Like I am so exhausted of online discourse, and I used to be like, "Oh, what's worse? Is it the Star Wars fandom or the DC fandom?" I wasn't expecting the Tolkien fandom to come out from like the depths of Khazad-dûn, and wow, rough stuff.
It's disappointing because we should hold ourselves to a higher standard than that. But the thing is, the people upset because they're manipulating storyline and changing the timelines and changing a little bit, making some minor changes. They're really upset about it, but it's like Tolkien barely wrote about this. And I've said this a million times. He barely wrote about this section. And they're like, "Oh, they introduced new characters." Like, well, he only mentions like 10 people in the Second Age. Like, what are you talking about? Of course he did. And they could have jumped on the second season, at least committed 100% to doing 2 seasons. But I know that it's a huge investment. They wanted to see if there was a payoff for it. But critically, this show is going to win some awards. It's going to. There's no way it doesn't.
I don't understand how it couldn't win score or music,
cinematography, set design,
cinematography, and
costume design.
there's nothing that's going to touch it on effects.
This show makes House of the Dragon look cheap.
Because things like House of the Dragon has some cool sets and the dragons look good, but almost every shot of Rings of Power is a VFX shot to some degree, and it's all seamless. It's really good.
When you're in Numenor, you feel like you're in Numenor. It's glorious. The ships, the water in Lindon. Yeah, when you're in Lindon, when you're in Eregion, all these, what's funny is they were in Eregion, and the explosion happened when they were trying to make the metal, and it was funny to me that my brain initially went to Numenor because they both look similar in the style of design and everything.
Yeah,
but then it was like I saw the explosion. I'm like, was that the Palantir? Oh, we didn't get to see what Aaron saw in the Palantir either. Oh man. There so many cool storylines, so many cool things coming, and that's that they left just enough for you wanting. They closed a lot of stuff, but they also left you really wanting for season 2 right now, which is exactly how I like to feel at the end of a series like this. Is that desire for more.
You want to feel that the season has wrapped up, setting you up for the next season without just dropping off. Because sometimes the season's like, well, we'll have another season, so we'll just stop here. And you're like, that wasn't satisfying. Everything about this was an epic climactic finish to this season. Emotion, music, there's action in it, reveals. It had everything a season finale should have. Answered some questions, set up some new ones. We're very excited for season 2. Scott, we're wrapping up here. I want to say thank you for everything you've done for this show, for Rings of Power. You have worked your butt off. You are a busy, busy guy, whether it's reactions, shorts, meeting with me every Saturday to talk about this show. We are doing everything in our power to get the positive word of mouth, and we've gotten some appreciation for that. And I love seeing in some of the comments, some people saying like, hey, I keep coming back because this is where I'm finding positive discourse about the show. And that's what you're going to get here. Whether it's Rings of Power, whether it's Marvel content stuff, we prefer to talk about the things that we like. And it's not that we're blind or biased or just blowing smoke up people's butt. If we really don't like something, you're probably not going to hear a lot from it because that is not a good use of time.
We don't waste our time discussing movies that suck. When they do, we're like, that's not even worth a review. Because why would I want to come on here and just bash something?
I will have to review Black Adam, and I don't know if my expectations are high. But if I don't like it after my review, you won't hear about it so much.
Well, the great thing is, at least he looks the part for Black Adam.
True enough.
But Black heroes don't kill people.
Well, I do.
Yeah. Not quite as eloquent writing, but it's to the point.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it turns out.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us both today as we discuss the season finale and as our entire journey, or since it was together, our adventure. It's been a pleasure, and we hope to see you on the next show. It's been Jesse and Scott. Thank you so much. Until next time, keep it real.